Let's talk about food. In the IELTS speaking part 1, there is often questions about food. In this video, we're going to be looking at 5 of those common questions. We're going to be looking at a sample answer for each of them. We're going to pick apart that sample answer to look at the vocabulary and the grammatical range and accuracy. We're then also going to look at common mistakes that IELTS candidates make when they are answering these questions so you can avoid them in your IELTS speaking test. This video is going to be comprehensive, so settle down, make yourself comfortable, make a nice cup of tea and grab your notebook. You're going to want to make notes on this video. Now, let's get started with question 1. What is your favourite food? I love a traditional British roast dinner. Every Sunday, my nana cooks one for the whole family and it's still my all-time favourite food. Some people think British food is bland, but that's just a stereotype. Beef roast dinners really are my comfort food. Alright, let's go to the PowerPoint and see what is good about that sample answer. We're going to be looking at the grammatical range and accuracy and the vocabulary. Let's go. Okay, so as we can see from the example, the candidate, me, has used some good vocabulary, such as traditional, which means that something has been done or used for a long time and is considered a typical or classic example of a particular culture or way of life. So in this case, a traditional British roast dinner is referring to a meal that's commonly eaten in Britain on a Sunday, and it's roast beef. The candidate then talks about something British food being bland, and bland just means that it's something that lacks flavour or is tasteless. So in this case, they're saying a lot of people think British food is tasteless or bland. But that's just a stereotype, and stereotype means an oversimplified or fixed idea that isn't necessarily true. So in this case, it's saying that a lot of people think it's bland, but the candidate is saying, that's just a stereotype. That's just a fixed idea that people have when they don't really know anything about British food. Let's have a look at some of the grammatical forms used in this sample answer. So the first thing is that there is simple present tense used. I love a traditional British roast dinner. Also, we use the present continuous sense. Every Sunday, my nana cooks one for the whole family. We use the possessive pronoun, which means it's still my all-time favourite food. So my is the possessive pronoun. It's like I own it. It's my favourite food. We use some collocation of adjective noun, such as British food. British being the adjective, food being the noun. You can use anything like this. Nepalese food, Chinese food. It is a good grammatical structure and an easy one to remember. And finally, there's a relative clause in the complex sentence. So here it's some people think British food is bland, and then the relative clause, but it's just a stereotype. Try to add these kind of things into your own answer when talking about food or your favourite food, or in any of the IELTS speaking part 1 questions. Let's have a look now at some common mistakes. One of the main common mistakes that candidates make in this IELTS question, what is your favourite food, is that they will use most favourite. And most favourite is grammatically incorrect because favourite is already a superlative adjective, which means it's already the highest you can get. So the most is not needed. If you do want to use an intensifier for favourite, you could use absolute favourite. So don't say, my most favourite food is pizza. Say something instead like, my absolute favourite food has to be pizza. Another common mistake is that candidates will not expand on their answer. So when the examiner asks, what is your favourite food? The candidate will say, my favourite food is pizza, and then they will stop. Always make sure to expand on your answer. The best way to do that is imagine the examiner asks you why. Question 2 is very similar. The examiner might ask you, are there any foods that you dislike? I can't stand mushrooms. They make me gag even when I eat one by accident. I don't like the texture. They feel like little slugs in my mouth. I can't believe that they are a popular pizza topping. Yuck. Okay, let's go and analyse the vocabulary and the grammatical structures in that answer. Okay, so that was the answer to, is there any foods that you don't like? And let's have a look at the vocabulary. So as you can see, we have I can't stand, which is idiomatic language that means to strongly dislike or hate something or someone. In this case, I'm saying that I can't stand mushrooms, which means I really dislike them. They make me gag when I eat them by accident. Notice how gag is stressed. You need to work on pronunciation and fluency as well. So gag is when you go, bleh, bleh. Okay, that's a gag. It's the reflective action of the throat and stomach when you swallow something unpleasant. And finally, texture. Texture is just how something feels in your mouth or to the touch. In this case, it is how it feels in the mouth. I say it feels like slugs. Let's have a look at the grammatical range and accuracy of this answer. Well, they used a modal verb. The modal verb can't shows a strong negative opinion about mushrooms. I use the present simple tense. They make me gag when I eat them by accident. It's used to express a habitual or repeated action, like they always make me gag. There's a simile used. A simile is when you compare something to something else using like or as. They feel like little slugs in my mouth. So it's a way to compare something. It's a simile. Really good one to use in the IELTS speaking test. And there's also a modal verb with a negative. So I can't believe their popular pizza topping, yuck. And then there's an interjection there, yuck, which shows disgust. Another good one for your fluency. At the end, if you say what you don't like and you go, yuck, or bleh, that is actually a really good way to show off your fluency and your pronunciation. Yuck. Thank you for that, me. Okay, some common mistakes student makes when asked about any foods that they dislike are when they don't follow up their answer. They can just say, I don't like mushrooms, and they don't give any reasons why they don't like them. So even though it is a closed question, what foods do you dislike? Don't just give one-word answers like mushrooms. Try and do what I did and expand on that answer. Another common mistake would be a student saying, there are no foods that I dislike. I like all of them. Which is okay, but it's much better to pepper that answer with some topic-specific vocabulary. Maybe you could say something that you are not keen on. I like all foods generally, but I'm not very keen on mushrooms. Or you could say something like, I don't really dislike any foods, but croissants, I can take them or leave them. And then at least you're adding some idiomatic expressions into your answer. Another very common question that you may get asked in the IELTS speaking part 1 is, what are foods like in your country? Questions like this can vary, such as, what are clothes like in your country? Or what is music like in your country? But we're talking about food today, so let's have a look at how to answer the common IELTS type of question. What is food like in your country? In Thailand, foods from all over the world are available. Mostly though, the Thais like to eat their traditional food, like green curry or pad thai. Spicy food is very popular, but tourists sometimes get a bit of a shock at how spicy the food is. Okay, let's have a look at the vocabulary and the grammatical structures in that sample answer. And remember, make sure to use these when you're practicing your answers. Have a go in the comments. What are some popular foods in your country? Oh, and don't forget, hit that like button if you're enjoying this video. The reason we're looking through lexical resource and grammatical range and accuracy in this video is because I want you to see what you need to do to get these top bands. As you can see, for band 9, you need to use vocabulary with full flexibility and precision in all topics, and use idiomatic language naturally and accurately. That doesn't mean you need to shove idioms in. And of course, the grammatical range and accuracy uses a full range of structures naturally and appropriately. Okay, and even slips are characteristic of native speaks. See, that was a slip, native speech. So that's why we're looking through these things. All of these are possibly a band 9, as I'm showing you lots of different structures of grammar. All right, so let's have a look at the vocabulary. In Thailand, foods from all over the world are available. Mostly though, the Thai people like to eat are traditional foods. And here, traditional food refers to the food that are typically eaten in Thailand and have been part of the country's culinary heritage for a long time. Culinary heritage is also a good phrase to use in IELTS speaking. Learn what it means. And spicy just means the hot flavours in the food. So it's very specific, it's very relevant to what we're talking about. And it's a nice adjective. So how many grammatical structures did we use in this short and simple answer? Well, quite a few. We used the prepositional phrase, in Thailand, which tells us where we're talking about, which is very good to use when you're asked about something in your country. You can use the prepositional phrase in Thailand or in India or in the US, wherever you're from. We use the adverb mostly, which modifies the verb like, and it indicates that Thai people like to eat traditional foods a lot of the time. Noun phrases such as our traditional foods, pad Thai and green curry are all phrases that describe different types of Thai food. We also use a conjunction, but, that joins the two clauses together, which makes a compound sentence. And we use adverbs of frequency, sometimes, and it modifies the verb get and indicates that the shock is not always experienced by tourists. So tourists sometimes get a shock at how spicy the food is. You could change this to tourists always get a shock. You see, the adverb of frequency. Try and use adverbs of frequency in your IELTS speaking because it's a good way to get grammatical range and accuracy scores if you do it properly. Okay, so what are some common mistakes that candidates utter when they are asked the question about foods that are popular in their own country? Well, the most common one is students give answers that are too general, such as things like, a lot of foods are popular in my country, and then they don't expand or explain or give examples of the popular types of food. Often, another common mistake is students will misunderstand the question and they will start giving their own personal preferences about food rather than what kinds of foods are popular where they live or where they're from. So remember, always listen to the examiner and try and answer the question properly. The next question we're going to look at is a bit more general, but it's still related to food. The question is, do you have a healthy diet? I generally try to eat a balanced and nutritious diet, but sometimes I fall off the wagon and I indulge in junk food binges. I would say that 80% of what I eat is healthy, but 20% is made up of high-calorie processed foods. Okay, you know the score by now. Let's go and see the vocabulary used and the range of grammatical structures and if they're used accurately. All right, there was a lot of vocabulary in the answer. So the first one, nutritious. Nutritious just means that food that provides the body with essential nutrients. Then fall off the wagon. It's another idiomatic expression that means to return to an unhealthy habit or behavior. For example, I stopped drinking for a long time and then I go on a drinking spree. I say I've fallen off the wagon. A binge is when you consume a large amount of food or drink in a short period of time, often uncontrollably. And to indulge is to allow yourself to do something that is considered pleasurable. I indulge in liking YouTube videos that help me with my IELTS. Give it a like. And moving on to grammatical range and accuracy, we can see here that there is simple present tense. I generally try to eat. Sometimes I fall off the wagon. What I eat is good. Processed foods that are high in calories. We've used modal auxiliary verbs, but sometimes I fall off the wagon and I indulge. I would say 80% of what I eat is good. There are some adjective phrases such as balanced and nutritious and high in calories. And we use the compound sentence structure. I generally try to eat a balanced and nutritious diet. Then the conjunction, but sometimes I fall off the wagon and indulge in junk food binges. There are lots more grammatical structures. I'm just showing you the ones that I wanted to highlight. A common mistake in this kind of question is that students tend to go to an extreme and they'll say that they have a super healthy diet or they have a really unhealthy diet. Most answers should be balanced because you can say sometimes this, but occasionally this. And you can use adverbs of frequency, which will give you a good score for grammatical range and accuracy and vocabulary. Another common mistake here is not giving examples. If you do have an unhealthy diet or a healthy diet, you should give examples to some of the things that you do eat or that you don't eat. Okay, the final question. If you are still with me, you must be enjoying this video, so please make sure you subscribe so you can get all the IELTS content that I produce straight to your homepage on YouTube. The final question is, how has your taste in food changed since you were a child? Now this is a very common IELTS speaking part 1 question. When I was younger, I used to have a sweet tooth. I used to argue with my parents because I wanted dessert and they said I had to eat my dinner first. Nowadays I prefer savoury food more, so I guess it's changed a lot. Okay, let's go and look at the vocabulary used and if there is grammatical range in the answer. Okay, some good vocabulary in this answer. We had sweet tooth, which is an idiomatic expression to describe a strong liking for sweet food and a craving for sugary snacks. It's a really good one to use because quite a lot of people have a sweet tooth. And savoury. Savoury just means food that is salty or spicy or not sweet. So anything that isn't a dessert, you can generally say is a savoury food. So moving on to the grammatical range and accuracy, we can see that we've used reported speech. This is one of my favourite things to tell students to do in the IELTS speaking task. Usually I ask them to do it in part 2 when they are telling a story, but in this case it came up naturally. So reported speech is just when you say what somebody else has said, when you report it to the examiner. So here you can say, I just wanted to eat dessert, and they would say, eat your dinner first. So this is reported speech, and it is a good grammatical structure to know. We use the present simple tense, now I prefer savoury foods. We also use the past tense, and we use the comparative adjective. So it has changed a lot, I guess, which compares the preference of sweet and savoury foods. The main common mistakes that students make in this kind of question, how has food or your tasted food changed since you were a child, is that they miss the opportunity to compare the past with the present. So it's always good to say, when I was younger, and then speak in the past tense, and then you can say, but now, or but nowadays, and then talk in the present tense. The biggest mistake is that students may just not do that and just say just the past or the present. So make sure that if you get any question, how has something changed since you were a child, that you compare the past tense with the present tense. Thank you for sticking with me all the way to the end. I hope this video was valuable to you. Make sure to sign up for the waiting list for my free online course in the description. Just click the link, put in your email. Make sure you've subscribed. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, or if you have any video requests, let me know. Watch this video next, because it is also about the IELTS speaking test. Good luck, and smash those IELTS exams.